So today we're going to do a hub service on the Fulcrum Racing 4 hub, which is what we have here. So the tools we're going to need to do the job are a 2.5mm Allen key, a 5mm Allen key, two 17mm spanners. I've only got one, so you can use an adjustable spanner on the other side. We're going to need a hammer to bash the old bearings out. Something to use to press against the bearings when we're bashing them out. We're going to use this brass rod. It's nice and soft, and it doesn't less risk of damaging anything inside the hub. We're going to need to take the cassette off, obviously, so we've got these cassette tools. We're going to need something to clean the inside of the hub with, so you can use isopropyl alcohol or some disc brake cleaner, something that isn't going to leave any residue on the inside of the axle and the hub parts, and then something to use to clean it with. So first things first, we're going to take off the quick release skewer and just put that to one side. Now we're going to use our cassette tools to get that cassette off, and then again put that to one side so we can put it on later. Here we just want to use our 5mm Allen key and our 17mm spanner. We're going to put one in the other side and then take out the retaining nut on the non-drive side. Leaving the 5mm Allen key on the drive side, use the smaller Allen key just to get that retaining part off. There's a little washer on the inside there, so you want to be careful not to lose that. And now you should just be able to slide the axle straight out. Now we can use our 5mm Allen key and our 17mm spanner. This part we can take out as opposite threads, so just be careful to turn it the correct way. So just going to undo that, and it's just one nut we're going to take out, put to one side. Now you should just be able to slide off the free hub from the axle, and there's this little sleeve that comes off as well. Here you can see there's a shape on the inside of the free hub and one on the axle here. So when you put the free hub back on, you need to make sure those line up, because sometimes that can stop you from putting it on. So now we just want to clean off the inside of the wheel, get a bit of a rag. Clean off the old grease. So here we've got 6903 bearings on either side of the hub. We're not going to replace the bearings today because they're still fine, but if you were, then they're two 6903 bearings. Give the axle a wipe down with the rag, get all the old grease off, and make sure it's nice and clean. So I'm just using some MO94 to clean off the axle, and I'm using a toothbrush just to get into the threads, just to make sure it's extra clean. And we're going to do the same with all the little bits that come out of the hub, to give them a good wipe down and a clean. You can use either the isopropyl alcohol or some of the MO94. And just make sure that it's fully wiped off when you put it away. So now I'm going to use this pick to take out the pulls. There's a little spring that holds them in. And you can just use that to hook round underneath one of the pulls and take that out. Be really careful not to lose any of the pulls, because they can spring out quite easily. So I'm going to use some of the MO94 again to give it a bit of a clean with the toothbrush. Once you've done this, you can give it a wipe down with a cloth, and you can also spray it with the isopropyl alcohol just to make sure there's no more grease or anything left when you put it back together again. So the trick to getting the spring back in is to find the little hole on the free hub and get that little angled bit of the spring in there, and then you just have to sort of flip it round, and then you can get the spring back on. And I like to put the spring back on before I put the pulls back in, as I find that's a little bit easier. So if you just put the pulls on top of the spring, and then just get your pick, angle that in there, lift it up, and then you can slide it in. It's quite fiddly, but you can do it fairly easily. So I'm just going to double check that the pulls are in properly and the spring's holding them in. The last thing you want is for the spring to not quite be where it should be, and then when you put the free hub back in and you go for a ride, it'll gets mashed up inside of the hub. So now we're going to just use a bit of the wet lube on the inside of the pulls. There's loads of different options. People have different opinions on what you should use and what you shouldn't. Different hubs recommend certain things, but I find that the wet lube generally works quite well. Doesn't gunk things up too much, and it leaves the free hub able to make a nice sound whilst you're riding. But it's not so thin that it's going to wash away quickly as if you're using like a dry lube or something like that. Now I'm just going to put some grease on the axle, so I'm putting grease on the parts where the bearings and the nuts sit, and I'm just going to wipe it in just to make sure that it's coated evenly. Now we can slide our free hub back on, being careful with those bits that we're lining it up properly so we can get it back on just like that. Now we just want to put that sleeve back on before we put the nut on. We've already put some grease on the threads there, so we can just slide that on, remembering it's the opposite thread on this side. I only want to do this up very gently. Doesn't need to be done up particularly tight. And just check that the free hub's moving nicely on the axle. Again, we're going to grease this side of the axle, making sure that it's an even coating where the bearing's going to sit, and then also in the threads where the nut the other side is going to sit. Now we're just going to give the teeth on the inside of the hub a bit of a clean before we put the free hub back in. You can use a toothbrush. It's already quite clean, so I haven't gone to too much trouble to get that clean. But if you wanted to give it a good proper clean, you can use some of the MO94 or even just the isopropyl alcohol. Just very carefully give it a clean. So now we can put the free hub back in. And when we come to do this, we want to be careful not to jam those pulls when we put it in. If you find that it doesn't go in easily like this, you can grab a pick and just very carefully press against the pulls, and then it should just pop in like that. And just check the action, make sure that the teeth sound good when you're turning the free hub. Now you can put a bit of grease around the outside of the bearing just to make it extra waterproof, stop any more moisture getting inside the bearings. If you're riding in dry weather, you don't need to worry so much. And now we just want to put this retaining bit back on. You just want to do it up finger tight. Definitely don't do it up too tight because you'll find that the axle won't move. So just until it stops spinning round, and then just do it up with the Allen key. And you just want to check again that that's spinning smoothly, because sometimes when you do that, you tighten it up, it becomes too stiff, like it has now. So you just want to undo it a little bit, and just twist it back a couple of mil, and do it back up again. Now we can put the end nut on that's going to sit on the dropouts. So again, we need to get our 5mm Allen key, put it on the other side, and our 17mm spanner. And we're just going to do that up ever so slightly. Now we're going to put our cassette back on. So we just want to make sure we're lining it up with the correct splines. Now we're just going to torque it up with our cassette tool. It wants to be 40 Newton meters. We're just going to put our quick release axle back in, and then that's the job done. We can put the wheel back in the bike.